Welcome to This is Broadcast Haunted Horror. And tonight we are exploring the Ridges in Athens, Ohio. Once known as the Athens Lunatic Asylum, a location steeped in history and tragedy with a reputation for intense paranormal activity that draws in those seeking a glimpse into the unknown.
The fascinating thing about the Ridges is that it isn't just a collection of ghost stories. It reflects a darker period of mental health care, and that palpable sense of suffering seems to linger, adding another layer to the unsettling energy there.
It opened in 1874 with the goal of providing compassionate care, a stark contrast to the asylums of the era.
Mhm.
But that ideal didn't last long, did it?
Sadly, no, the asylum was quickly overwhelmed, leading to horrific overcrowding. Imagine hundreds of patients crammed into spaces meant for far fewer. The conditions deteriorated, and eventually treatments that would be considered barbaric today became commonplace.
Like lobotomies, those were
Yeah.
performed to the Ridges, weren't they?
Yeah. Yes, along with electroshock therapy. These procedures were often conducted with little regard for the long-term effects on patients. The Ridges became a place of suffering, and sadly, many patients never left the asylum alive. That weight of tragedy permeates the location to this day.
And the asylum's closure in 1993 didn't exactly erase those dark chapters.
Right. The Ridges was left to decay, which adds to the eerie atmosphere, wouldn't you say? It's almost as if the building itself is a testament to what transpired within its walls.
Given all of that, it's no wonder the Ridges is a hotbed for paranormal activity. Visitors and investigators have reported some pretty intense experiences. Have you heard any particularly chilling accounts?
There are countless stories, from the classic shadowy figures in the corridors to full-bodied apparitions of former patients. What's interesting is that many of these reports come from people who knew nothing about the asylum's history before their visit. Yet they describe seeing figures dressed in clothing consistent with the time period, or even exhibiting behaviors reminiscent of patients who were known to have lived there.
That's incredibly creepy. And what about the unexplained noises I've heard that the Ridges is known for those too?
Oh, yes. Footsteps echoing in empty hallways, whispers seemingly coming from nowhere, even disembodied cries that send shivers down your spine. It's said that these sounds are often most pronounced in the old patient wards where suffering was at its peak.
And then there are the cold spots, those sudden drops in temperature that some believe are associated with paranormal activity. Have you ever experienced a cold spot yourself?
I can't say I have, but the Ridges seems to be a place where the veil between our world and the next feels thin. It's not just anecdotal evidence either. Paranormal investigators have recorded some truly compelling electronic voice phenomena, or EVPs, within the asylum. These are recordings that capture voices and sounds that weren't audible to the human ear at the time.
So you're saying there might be voices trapped within those walls, whispers from the past that we can only hear through technology?
That's the theory. And it's fascinating because some of these EVPs are said to be incredibly clear, almost like someone is speaking directly into the microphone, while others are more fragmented, like whispers carried on the wind.
I imagine those EVP recordings make the Ridges a very popular destination for paranormal investigators.
Absolutely. There are certain hotspots within the Ridges that are known to be particularly active. The old patient wards, of course, are a focal point, but the morgue is another area that sends chills down your spine. It's a place where the transition between life and death was a daily reality, and that energy seems to linger.
And we can't forget the cemetery, the final resting place for so many souls.
The cemetery at the Ridges is unlike any other. Many of the graves are unmarked, adding to the sense of anonymity and forgotten lives. Imagine wandering through that field surrounded by the spirits of those whose stories have been lost to time.
It's a poignant reminder of the human cost of the asylum's troubled history. Makes you wonder, what would those souls tell us if they could?
It's a question that haunts many of us, isn't it? What happens when we die? Do our spirits linger? These are questions that have captivated humanity for centuries. And places like the Ridges, with their documented paranormal activity, offer a tantalizing glimpse into the possibility of something beyond our understanding.
It's almost as if these haunted locations provide a space for us to explore those questions, to confront our fears, and consider the mysteries of existence. Why do you think we're so drawn to these places, these stories?
I think it's a combination of factors. There's the thrill of the unknown, of course, that adrenaline rush that comes with stepping into a place where the veil between our world and the next feels thin. But it's also about seeking answers, about wanting to understand what happens after we die, or trying to connect with loved ones who have passed on.
It's like a primal urge to make sense of the world, even the parts that seem to defy logic and reason. And for some, it's about confronting their own mortality, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. Visiting these places, hearing these stories, it forces us to confront the reality of death, the fragility of life. And in a way, it can be a cathartic experience, a way to process those fears and anxieties in a safe environment.
It's interesting how those investigations, those attempts to understand the paranormal often lead us back to the very real and very human stories of those who came before us.
You're right. Take the ridges, for example. By delving into the ghost stories and paranormal accounts, we inevitably encounter the history of the asylum itself, the stories of the patients who lived and died there, and the evolution of mental health care practices over time.
So in a way, exploring the paranormal becomes a way of connecting with history, a way to learn from the past and hopefully avoid repeating those same mistakes.
Precisely. These ghost stories, these whispers from beyond, they serve as a reminder that the past is never truly past. It continues to shape our present in ways we might not even realize.
The Ridges is a perfect example of that. By understanding the conditions that led to the suffering within those walls, we can better advocate for humane and compassionate mental health care today.
And it makes you think, doesn't it? If those walls could talk, what stories would they tell? What secrets would they whisper about the lives lived and lost within their confines?
There are stories of a particular patient, a woman known as Margaret. She's become almost a legend at the Ridges.
Yes, Margaret. Her real name has been lost to time, but her story has become intertwined with the asylum's paranormal lore. She was reportedly a patient who suffered greatly during her time at the Ridges, subjected to some of the most brutal treatments available at the time.
And the stories say that her spirit still roams the halls, searching for something, perhaps peace or a sense of closure. Visitors claim to see her apparition often in the area of the old hydrotherapy rooms, where she would have endured those agonizing treatments.
It's said that she's a restless spirit, her sadness palpable to those who encounter her, and her story, like so many others from the Ridges, highlights the importance of remembering those who are forgotten, of honoring their experiences and ensuring that such tragedies never happen again.
It's a sobering reminder that behind every ghost story, behind every chilling encounter, there's a human story waiting to be told, a life that mattered, a soul that deserves to be remembered.
And that's what makes this exploration so compelling, isn't it? It's not just about chills and thrills. It's about history, about empathy, and about confronting the big questions that have haunted humanity for centuries.
Exactly. It's about looking beyond the surface, delving deeper, and considering the complex tapestry of human experiences that have shaped the places we consider haunted. It's those human stories that truly resonate, the ones that stay with you long after the initial fear subsides, like Margaret's story. It's heartbreaking to think about the pain she endured, the treatments she was subjected to.
It's a stark reminder of how far we've come in our understanding and treatment of mental illness, but also how much work remains to be done. The stigma surrounding mental health is still a very real issue, and we need to continue to advocate for compassionate and effective care for those who are struggling.
You know, it's interesting how these conversations about haunted locations often lead us to reflect on the present, on the ways we approach mental health care, and the importance of compassion and understanding. It's like those who suffered in the past are trying to teach us something.
It's true. Perhaps those whispers from the past, those echoes of suffering, are meant to serve as a wake-up call, a reminder that we need to learn from history and do better for those who are suffering today.
The Ridges might be a place of darkness and tragedy, but it also offers a glimmer of hope, a reminder that even in the face of unimaginable hardship, the human spirit can endure.
And those stories of resilience, of strength in the face of adversity, those are the stories that truly inspire us. They remind us that even in the darkest of places, there is always light to be found.
So as we wrap up our exploration of the Ridges, I think it's important to remember that these places aren't just about ghosts and spooky tales. They're about history, about empathy, and about confronting the big questions that have haunted humanity for centuries.
And perhaps by listening to those whispers from the past, by acknowledging the suffering that occurred within those walls, we can honor those who came before us and work towards a future where everyone has access to the care and support they need.
Well said. And that brings us to the end of this broadcast, Haunted Horror. We hope you found this exploration of the Ridges as fascinating and thought-provoking as we did.
If you're interested in learning more, there are countless resources available online and in libraries. And if you're ever in Athens, Ohio, consider visiting the Ridges for yourself. Just be sure to be respectful of the history and the spirits that may reside there.
Until next time, keep exploring the shadows. Keep listening for those whispers from the past, and never stop seeking the truth that lies hidden within the darkness.